We move to our first panel discussion of the day, which is really, really exciting. How to secure your workforce, both remotely and on site. And obviously now with the pandemic and this huge wave of remote working coming in, the complexity of securing your workforce and your teams has become much more complex over the last year or so. So joining us in the studio is John Westholm, who is the VP of Information Security at Cint. The moderator for this discussion will be Lovisa Stenbakken-Schönlöf, who's the Okta practice lead at Devo team. And joining us shortly on the screen is Sandra Visoka, Cloud Architect at Trustly. Sandra, can you hear us?
Hi, yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Fantastic. Welcome aboard. So we're going to be talking about, a lot of different things today. But I think it's better if we just jump straight into the discussion. I hand over to you.
Thank you so much for that introduction.
Thank you.
I'm super excited to be here today with our guests. Both Trustly and Cint have been using Okta as their identity and access management platform for a few years now. And in this session, we will guide the audience through your journey with this tool, kind of from requirements and procurement until results. And as you mentioned, we will also talk a little bit about the past working from home year and what a tool like Okta and an identity and access management platform kind of can help in that scenario. Before we start with the talk, though, I'm just going to very quickly talk a little bit about kind of the core part of IAM and Okta. If there's perhaps someone in the audience that isn't really on point of the concept. So with an IAM like Okta, you kind of unify identity for your users. And those users can be employees, they can be contractors, partners, consultants, what have you. And with that identity, you can, in a very smooth way, give a single sign-on access to any applications that you have. And for your internal IT team, you can have one single place where you manage MFA policies to make that really smooth. And to kind of add the icing on the cake, we can also add automations of lifecycle management to automate that flow of joiner, mover, leavers. So that's kind of the core part. There's a lot of other things we can do, but let's stick to this for now, right? So back to the panel and the discussion. Let's start with you, Cint and Jon. You were part of sourcing Okta, or an IAM rather, a few years back. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of the pain points you were experiencing and why you started looking for a tool?
Well, so the situation, I guess it's common to other organizations, is that we had a small IT team. We had a lot of different cloud services and nothing to rule them all. So that was the pain point. We had a challenge on the onboarding and offboarding of users. We also ended up in kind of a perfect storm because we at the same moment, we went out to replace our HR system as well. So we ended up in HR-driven IT kind of state with Okta as the core of this identity management.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as you mentioned, it's a common sort of point to start, right? But Sandra, you experienced, you had a kind of different point of view or entry into this process. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. At the moment of choosing particularly Okta as central management system for us, I was actually in another department. So I was in business intelligence analytics, one of the future stakeholders of this system. We were expanding our reporting environment, having local users, adding them, resetting their passwords, and nobody started to like it. The more users we had, the more resets after holidays we had to do, including our CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, who didn't enjoy this kind of experiences. So we were looking for somebody else to handle authentication. We just wanted with our reporting environment, so user comes in and somebody else in company says, yes, this is legit Trustly employee, credentials are fine, you may go in. So we looked at SAML integrations and meanwhile platform, the team I joined later and started to manage Okta. There we're already looking at that because I assume it was more problems than just reporting environment. So number of applications was growing, users were growing. It was confusing for everyone, including IT, who is responsible for what, where to get access, and centralizing it all. It actually makes it much simpler for everyone.
Yeah.
So that was from business side, the
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we actually see that quite typically as well from a lot of customers we talk to, that it is a need rather from developers, that kind of thing, that unified access and make sure that you have that control that you really need. So it's
Can I just ask a question there? Because I think, Sandra, you brought up a question of people start to not use the systems because it's hard for them to get in. So there's a friction there that actually stops people using the systems that companies need them to use. Is that correct?
Yes. And the more systems you have, the more you might get even embarrassed that you don't remember password.
Yeah.
Or you don't want to trouble the team that is actually doing some other more bigger changes for company, and you're coming with your password reset. You kind of delay it as long as possible, plus tickets overhead, and yeah.
Yep. So, Jon, when you identified these pain points, what were more the typical requirements you had on an IAM platforms? What were sort of the selling points to you?
So the main selling points, we were looking for one single platform where we could meet internal and external users, and that would have the reach to control and handle access management for internal systems hosted on premise, but also for our cloud solutions out there. All of this bundled into integration with Active Directories and other catalog services as well. So it become one single source of truth user catalog.
And what has that enabled in the business?
Well, so I mean, we gained huge insight and control of our entire user base, internal and external. So we and a proper lifecycle management to that as well. So if someone is joining, we know where to enable. If someone is leaving, we know where to disable. So all in control.
Yeah. So exactly more just the awareness and being sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Sandra, at Trustly, you've been using Okta also for a couple of years now. Tell me a bit about the improvements you've seen in these 2 years.
Well, definitely moving authentication outside of business owner area or app. So we are responsible for it, or Okta is responsible for it. We have implemented 60 to 70 apps with single sign-on since almost 2 years, I think, or maybe even a bit more. But we have gained self-service password resets, which was kind of a big thing and big change. And I looked actually, what does this mean statistically? It means that we have approximately 1 to 3%, depending on how big holidays we have had, of users monthly trying to reset their passwords, which usually happens after holidays or coming back from parental leave. So we don't have to do that.
Yeah.
No tickets are created. There are many people not getting involved anymore in this. And that's, I think, has been one of the biggest success things in this. Also onboarding automation, deactivation with workflows. That is driven by HR system changes that Okta just picks up. Activation date, user gets activated, added to all default apps, things like that. Self-service apps also, users can request access in the hub, let's say for GitHub, or to some budget planning tool. If user has moved in department where they should start to do budget planning, they can request access to such application. Depending on settings, it's auto-approved, or somebody in finance department who's responsible for approving such requests approves, gets email and approves it. So many of those things that we are kind of have been removed at platform or IT from being bottlenecked and waiting for requests.
Right.
So yeah, it's a huge, very nice
Yeah.
impact.
So
Yeah.
a lot of those kind of tedious manual tasks have been possible to automate, specifically then perhaps for the sort of internal IT team or technical support kind of, yeah. Which of these that you mentioned do you think that the IT team is most excited about to not have to do? Is it the yeah. The
And I
most
think
work.
this comes down to, this is where I see that in these areas, we have these applications coming in that enable people to do what I call, the interesting work. Resetting passwords, if you're an expert in IT, that is a really bad use of your resources, isn't it? So, and with this cyber threat landscape, other things, we want them to be focused, on bigger picture, more scary things.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
more challenging things. And these kind of small items, and I think the other piece that I take away just from what Sandra said was, once it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you gather it up and aggregate it over, I think you said 60 or 70 apps, it starts to be a huge amount of human capital regained,
Yep.
human time regained, resources that you can redirect somewhere else. So these are not small things when it comes to the fundamental improvement that can come from technology in a business.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 60, 70 apps and a few hundred employees or coworkers. That time that IT can then spend on something that actually brings value rather
Yeah.
than reset passwords or create or deprovision accounts. That's huge for any organization, I would say. But you've also seen some other kind of results with Okta when it comes to mergers and acquisitions. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So on the buying streak, when acquiring businesses, what Okta enables you is that you look at it as a neutral catalog of where you can import the new business onto, and then you can immediately start sharing the older organization's internal applications at the click of a button, because you integrate an agent in the catalog service, and you import the users, and then you can start sorting them and assigning applications and permissions. So we onboarded 100 users a couple of years back, and that was done in a matter of weeks. And it was, click of a button.
You did it in a matter of weeks, but what would it have been before?
Yeah, it would be a long-running task.
Like it would be incremental,
Yeah,
done over
absolutely.
many months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So it's and given that it's a cloud-born, cloud-hosted, look at it as a neutral catalog service. It's a perfect place to integrate businesses.
Yeah,
And you can do that. With vendors, providers, wherever where you need to collaborate and you need control of the identity.
Yeah, exactly. And especially for this use case with mergers and acquisitions, to when you have a new company joining forces, to be able to give that access to those birthright applications, your collaboration tools, chats, those kinds of tools from day one. Just import those users from whatever directory the new company has, give access to at least those critical ones, and you can be up and running from day one.
Yeah.
It's super powerful.
Indeed.
It's really interesting to hear that result. Cool. Let's go into the topic of everyone's agenda for the past year: working from home,
Yay,
remote
another Zoom
working.
meeting. Yay.
Exactly. So let's start with you, Sandra. Did the pandemic change the roadmap you had for like identity access management, security, Okta? Or do you feel like you were exactly where you had to be sort of to manage this situation?
I'm not sure the pandemic changed like exactly for user management specifically, like apart from typical things that change, quick coffee talks and whiteboardings or ideas. We are operating in several countries, so remote help to people has been a normal thing. I think the biggest change was actually that we had to document much more. We had to communicate more effectively about how to get access, where to go to, and also because we have been changing process and improving, we constantly trying to smoothen out the workflows. So that has been biggest, that we need to communicate better and guide people through, because you don't have pop-up at desk anymore
Yeah.
possibility. So, which is really good
Yeah.
because it's more transparency.
Do you think
yeah.
the transition would have been as smooth for you if you didn't have Okta in place?
That would be much more Slack messages for many more departments, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So you think it's helped?
would be-
How about you, Jon?
Yeah.
What is your experience with this?
Well, so I agree with Sandra. So I mean, we were already in a kind of a happy place, tooling wise at least, that we had. I mean, we had the access management, we had connected all the applications, and we were sort of ready for working from home. Of course, there were some minor tweaks that was needed. I mean, in terms of two-factor lifetime, things like that, but minor tweaks all in all,
Yeah.
I'd say. So it's, it just been keep on running.
Exactly. How have you been able to manage onboarding during this past year? Have any changed in the sort of in your routines around that?
So I can go first,
Yeah.
Sandra. So I mean, we at Cint we grew as an organization quite heavily last year. So we took a hit when COVID entered, and then we accelerated throughout the rest of the year. So I think we onboarded maybe 100 users all in all last year, and
Wow.
that was, I mean, I said it, HR-driven IT. So we have HR master data feeding into Okta, spinning up the users as they come on board on the start date. And we have automation. So if it's a salesperson based in New York, they get these sets of accesses already provisioned in the tools. So
Yeah.
it's
Super smooth.
easy peasy.
Yeah. So you didn't have to do any changes or updates really to make it flow.
Not any out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of organizations wish they had
Yeah.
looking in the back mirror.
Yeah.
Really, yeah, that's cool.
What about you, Sandra, from your onboarding?
Well, for us, it was at the same time when we actually were working on improving onboarding flow itself. So it would have happened anyway.
Yeah.
In a way, we would get more exposed on processes that could be avoided, who is communicating with whom, because once it all is written, you see Slack messages or emails going around, you understand exactly how the flow actually works, that you might have missed because people in office walk around and,
Right.
do the process.
Yeah. So you actually got a better visibility from the working
Yeah,
from
and
home part.
also, I mean, also we went into Okta workflow tooling, which greatly actually improved. And I must say, I don't know even currently in last month, how is it going? Because we haven't got any, help from IT or why user wasn't onboarded.
Yeah. So
In the
it's just
cases
running.
we had, it was actually our own algorithm problem. So
You know, one of the things that I see about remote working that the pandemic has done is it's changed the way companies think about the talent pool. The talent pool that they think about now is global.
Yeah.
If I need somebody who's an expert in this, why can't they be in France and I'm in Stockholm or wherever, right? And so I think this kind of solution and these kind of things is actually come at the right time for us, because when we see, I mean, I was saying to somebody, imagine this pandemic without these tools, without Zoom. Let's say the pandemic's in 2000, the level of friction in business would have been massive.
Yep.
But actually what I see, and I'm a leadership and culture consultant during the day, my day job, is that all this technology is enabling this huge shift in the way we work that wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't there. And so just the mindset that, say Sandra has or you have about, we need to onboard someone who's going to work from Finland, who's going to work from Sydney. Your level of stress is, okay,
Yeah.
it's
it's not a day at the job. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a really I just think it's a really interesting time where technology and the kind of progress we want to make, is just it's all coming together in this fascinating way.
Definitely.
Mm.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
if we look at the roadmap for you, Jon, has it changed anything for during this pandemic?
I mean, we have had some new tooling coming in, and some of the tools are not fully Okta ready. And I think that from a cloud service that you acquire, some tools are still legacy when it comes to identity management, meaning that you still need to go in and create the user accounts, and you can't really integrate them into Okta. But then you have the other side with the innovative, more modern tooling that you can spin up users, you can manage the license, you can change roles, permissions, do all that jazz. And when a user leave, you decommission them, and you do that fully automatic. So, yeah.
Yeah. Super cool. Sandra, so Trustly Endeavor team, we've been working super closely together, especially the past year. What are your thoughts on working with a partner when it comes to Okta specifically?
Well, working with partner in general is good that somebody's holding your hand, somebody expert in area following, and helping to troubleshoot. In general, when we started with Okta, we did it our own way to get basically quick wins and quickly to move on. So when we started to work with partner, it was first audit for what we have and suggestions and recommendations how we should improve, which was very good because when you think when user management is one of your tasks only, then you can't focus all your time on that. So it's very good when the third eye comes in and just checks on you and helps you. It has been, it has been very good because you get the latest features. You get this hand holding and troubleshooting, and occasionally when we learn by doing, you also get alert messages and just checking on us. Is this what you plan to do?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right. Getting some feedback and
Yes.
some sanity
Yeah.
checks, really.
Yeah, and also now when we want to integrate two orgs together, so go global more, it's very appreciated. Help actually in research.
Yep. So next on the agenda, merge two orgs. Super exciting. Thank you so much.
What about for you? And what's it like to work with partners from your side?
Well, so we when it comes to Okta, we were doing it fairly alone by choice, of course, and it's you can build Okta or integrate Okta really advanced. I'd say that Cint is in the mid layer, so we have managed to do that and maintain it on our own. So we are partnerless.
I think it's very like Sandra said, it depends on how much you want to have employees focus on Okta and spend time there, right? So it's a different approach from different organizations. Some have very sort of Okta-focused personnel that spend a lot of time and make sure that it's up to date and run and everything is cleaned and looking neat.
Yep.
While others have Okta as one of their tasks every day, and where we can come in and give that more kind of holistic view and sort of help with that that bird's view and help make sure the latest features are implemented and turned on and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. Look, we have about 5 minutes left, and I would actually just like to talk more about the threat side for a few minutes, if that's okay.
Sure.
Because we have experts in the room. And I'd like to just, when we talk about identity access management in general, can you talk a little bit about the threat landscape, the kind of things that keep you up at night? What is it that you're, obviously you're managing organizations. So we have all these problems of people using their own devices, people remote working, you can't see what people are doing. It gets harder and harder to educate people quickly enough about the threats because the threats evolve faster than your training programs can, basically. So what keeps you up at night with identity access management?
honestly, I mean, I sleep really well, and
Yeah.
and
Because you have an
yeah,
AM.
because exactly. No, but what the insights that I get via Okta is that I have one-stop shop where I control my two-factor policies. I know who my users are. I can see my consultants, my contractors, my suppliers or vendors that I, for some reason, need access to my tools. And I have that one good single look glass of pane in Okta.
Yeah.
So it's, Okta makes me
Yeah.
sleep at night.
Yeah. But just before you had the tool,
Yeah.
you know, what were the kinds of things?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to user lifecycle management.
Okay.
I mean, pretty big, pretty large workforce, and I mean, easy to spin up the first account, but then should they have access to that tool or this tool? What kind of permission level should they have? Someone was moving into another role, closed down an old account. I mean, a mess.
Yeah.
And now it's
Yeah, and so you know, I think there's a really good takeaway there, which is that if we're not finding some way to bring all of this identity access management together,
Yeah.
you know, with your tool or a similar tool, you know, you're basically leaving all of these trap doors, because as your
Absolutely.
business grows, the complexity grows, the threat grows,
Yeah.
and your ability to track what you're doing becomes an enormous work. Correct? Yeah.
indeed.
Indeed.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, if you don't have those rules, as you mentioned, like who should have access to what, and if you don't have those rules, it's also, if you then give access, how should you remember to reduce that access when the person leaves? I think when we talk to customers, a lot of, you know, it's both the MFA part that you want to secure accounts with MFA, and without this unification, you have to have that in so many places. It's hard to keep track of. And the other one is especially the leaver part. Also a little bit the mover. If you change department, and you should lose access to, but leaver, how are you 100% sure that that person that just left do not have any more access to anything? Especially if you don't really know what they got access to from the start. So to automate this, rules, processes, that's what we typically hear sort of in the need for people we talk to.
Yep. Great. We have to leave it there. It's been wonderful to have you, John, Sandra, and sorry, and
Lovisa.
Lovisa. Thank you. It's been wonderful to have you here, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much, and thank you everyone for watching our session.
Great.